Patricia Richardson crushed sleeping pills into her mother's coffee every morning for 18 months, not to ease her pain, but to keep her quiet, docile, and unable to tell anyone that her daughter was systematically draining her bank accounts. She thought the perfect crime was within reach. But on the night she prepared to forge the final document that would steal everything, Jesus Christ appeared in her kitchen and showed her a vision so horrifying of her mother's slow poisoning, of her own demonic transformation, and of the eternal consequences waiting. That Patricia collapsed, screaming, realizing she had become the monster she never thought she could be. There's a type of abuse that leaves no bruises, no visible scars, no evidence that would show up in photographs. It's the abuse of medication, of using prescription drugs not to heal, but to control, to silence, to imprison someone in their own clouded mind. Medical abuse of the elderly is grossly underreported. Experts estimate that only about 1 in 14 cases ever comes to light. It happens in homes across America, adult children who increase their parents' medication without doctor approval, who mix drugs to create confusion and compliance, who use pharmaceuticals as chemical restraints. This is the story of Patricia Richardson, a 47-year-old accountant from Sacramento, California, who discovered that her elderly mother's prescribed medications could be weaponized, that by slightly increasing dosages, mixing contraindicated drugs, and adding over-the-counter sedatives, she could keep her mother in a perpetual fog, awake but not alert, alive but not present, existing but not functioning. For 18 months, Patricia systematically drugged her 79-year-old mother, Helen, while simultaneously draining $340,000 from Helen's accounts. She forged signatures, she filed false tax returns, she redirected Social Security checks, she created fake invoices for nursing care that never happened. And Helen, confused, exhausted, unable to form coherent thoughts, couldn't stop her, couldn't report her, couldn't even understand what was happening. Patricia thought she was untouchable. She thought her plan was foolproof. She thought no one would ever know. She didn't account for one thing: Helen's prayers. Even through the pharmaceutical fog, even in her drugged confusion, Helen prayed. Simple prayers, often just, "Jesus, help me. Jesus, save us." And on the night Patricia prepared to complete her theft, Jesus answered those prayers in the most dramatic way possible. He appeared to Patricia and showed her 3 visions that would expose her crimes, reveal her soul's condition, and offer one final chance at redemption before it was eternally too late. This story contains difficult content about elder abuse, medical manipulation, and addiction, but it also contains hope that even the darkest sins can be confronted, confessed, and forgiven if we're willing to face the truth. Helen Richardson sat in her recliner in the living room of the house she'd lived in for 43 years, staring at the television without really seeing it. A game show was on, bright colors, enthusiastic contestants, loud music, but Helen couldn't follow what was happening. Her thoughts moved like molasses, slow, thick, disconnected. What day was it? Tuesday? Wednesday? She couldn't remember. Had she eaten breakfast? She thought so, but maybe that was yesterday. Where was Patricia, her daughter? Patricia lived here now, or had she always lived here? Helen couldn't quite remember when that had started. Everything was foggy, everything was confused, everything was heavy. Helen tried to lift her hand, to reach for the water glass on the side table. Her arm felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She managed to grab the glass but nearly dropped it. Her hands trembled constantly now. When had that started? She sipped the water and felt a wave of drowsiness wash over her. So tired. Always so tired. "Mom, are you awake?" Patricia's voice came from the doorway. Helen turned her head slowly. Even that movement felt difficult, and saw her daughter standing there with a coffee cup. "I brought you your morning coffee," Patricia said, walking over with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning?" Helen's voice was slurred, like her tongue wasn't working properly. "Thought it was afternoon." "No, Mom, it's 9 a.m. You're just confused again." Patricia's tone was patient, but held an edge of satisfaction that Helen was too foggy to detect. Patricia handed her mother the coffee. "Here, this'll help wake you up." Helen took the cup, with shaking hands. She didn't notice the faint residue of crushed pills at the bottom, didn't see how the liquid was slightly cloudier than normal coffee should be. She drank obediently. The coffee tasted slightly bitter, but everything tasted strange lately. Her sense of taste had become dull, like someone had turned down the volume on all her senses. "That's good," Patricia said, watching her mother drain the cup. "Now, Mom, I need you to sign some papers. Just routine stuff, bills, bank statements, you know." Patricia pulled out a manila folder and spread documents across the TV tray in front of Helen. Bank transfer forms, power of attorney modifications, tax documents. Helen tried to read them, but the words swam on the page. Her vision was blurry. Her concentration was shattered. She couldn't make sense of any of it. "Where do I?" Helen mumbled. "Right here, Mom," Patricia said, pointing to signature lines with an expensive pen. "Just sign where I've marked." Helen signed. She didn't understand what she was signing, couldn't focus long enough to read. Trusted her daughter. What else could she do? "Perfect," Patricia said, gathering up the documents with barely concealed triumph. "Okay, Mom, why don't you take a nap? You look tired." "Always tired," Helen mumbled, her eyes already closing. The drugs in the coffee were taking effect. Within minutes, she'd be deeply asleep, and Patricia would have hours to work undisturbed. Patricia watched her mother's head loll to the side as sleep overtook her. She felt a brief flicker of something, guilt, concern, but quickly suppressed it. This was necessary, Patricia told herself. Her mother couldn't manage her own affairs anymore. She was confused, forgetful, declining. Patricia was just helping, taking care of things, making sure her mother's money was properly managed. That the money was being managed directly into Patricia's personal accounts, that was just efficient, practical. Patricia would inherit it. Eventually, anyway. She was just accelerating the timeline, and keeping her mother sedated, that was mercy. Her mother didn't need to worry about finances or decisions. Better to let her rest, sleep, exist peacefully without the stress of awareness. Patricia had constructed an elaborate justification for her crimes. She'd convinced herself she was a caregiver, not an abuser, a financial manager, not a thief, a loving daughter making hard choices, not a predator drugging her own mother into helpless compliance. But deep down in a place Patricia refused to examine, she knew the truth. She was poisoning her mother, slowly, deliberately, to facilitate theft. She just couldn't admit it to herself.
Before we begin, if you believe in second chances and the power of faith, type "restore" in the comments right now. Let your voice be the spark of hope for a family in need. Show the world your faith in action.
Helen hadn't always been this way. 18 months ago, she'd been sharp, active, independent. Sure, she was slowing down at 77, but she'd been managing her own finances, driving herself to appointments, maintaining her house, volunteering at her church. Then Patricia had shown up with a suitcase. "Mom, I lost my apartment," Patricia had said, standing on Helen's doorstep with tears in her eyes. "My landlord sold the building. I need a place to stay for a few weeks until I find something new. Can I stay with you?" Helen, who still saw Patricia as her little girl, despite Patricia being 45 years old, had immediately said yes. "Of course, sweetheart. Stay as long as you need." Patricia had moved into the guest bedroom. A few weeks became a few months. Patricia claimed she was looking for an apartment but never seemed to find one. Meanwhile, Patricia began noticing her mother's finances. Helen had saved diligently throughout her life. Her late husband's life insurance, her own retirement savings, Social Security, a pension, investment accounts. Helen was worth approximately $650,000. Not a fortune, but a comfortable nest egg that would support her through the rest of her life. Patricia, on the other hand, was broke. She'd been fired from her job as an accountant for falsifying expense reports, a termination she'd never told her mother about. She had $38,000 in credit card debt. She was behind on her car payment. She was, functionally, destitute, and living in a house with an elderly woman who had over $500,000. The temptation was overwhelming, and Patricia had the knowledge as an accountant of exactly how to steal from someone without leaving obvious traces. But there was a problem. Helen was sharp. She reviewed her bank statements. She questioned unusual transactions. She would notice if money started disappearing. Patricia needed her mother to stop noticing, stop questioning, stop being alert. That's when Patricia had her terrible idea. Helen took several medications for common elderly ailments: blood pressure medication, a statin for cholesterol, a low-dose aspirin, and thyroid medication. She also took melatonin occasionally for sleep and antihistamines for allergies. Patricia started small. She'd slip an extra antihistamine into her mother's evening medication. Helen would wake up groggier than usual, but nothing alarming. Then Patricia added melatonin to the morning pills, not the evening dose when it was expected, but morning, when it made Helen sluggish all day. Then she increased the antihistamine dose to maximum over-the-counter levels. Then she began crushing sleeping pills, Benadryl, then Tylenol PM, then prescription sleep aids she ordered online, without a prescription, into Helen's coffee. Over the course of 3 months, Helen transformed from a sharp, active woman into a confused, lethargic shell. She stopped driving because she felt too disoriented. She stopped managing her finances because the numbers didn't make sense anymore. She stopped going to church because she was too exhausted. Her doctor was concerned. He ran tests for dementia, for neurological problems, for metabolic issues, but everything came back relatively normal. He attributed her decline to age-related cognitive changes and prescribed additional medication for what he diagnosed as early dementia. Patricia filled that prescription eagerly. More medication meant more tools in her arsenal of control. Helen's friends from church called to check on her, but Patricia had caller ID and would screen calls, answering only occasionally to report that mom's sleeping, or mom's having a bad day, or mom's not up for visitors. Gradually, Helen's social connections withered. She was isolated in her own home, with only Patricia for contact with the outside world, and Patricia began stealing. First, small amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there. Transfers that could be explained as routine expenses, then larger, 2 amounts, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000. Patricia created fake invoices for home healthcare services and medical equipment. She forged her mother's signature on checks. She transferred money from Helen's investment accounts to checking, then to Patricia's own accounts. Over 18 months, Patricia stole $340,000. And Helen, drugged, confused, isolated, couldn't stop her. Most days, Helen didn't even know it was happening, but on some level, some deep, spiritual level, Helen knew something was wrong. She couldn't articulate it, couldn't prove it, could barely think it, but she knew, and she prayed. Jesus, she would whisper in her rare moments of semi-clarity, usually late at night when the drugs had worn off enough for partial consciousness. Something's wrong. I don't know what. But you know, please help, please protect me, please save us both. Those prayers rose to heaven like smoke signals from a besieged city, and God was watching. Jesus was preparing to intervene, because on this particular night, as Patricia sat in the kitchen, finalizing forged documents that would transfer the last of Helen's assets into Patricia's control, everything was about to change. Patricia sat at the kitchen table at 11:47 p.m., carefully forging her mother's signature on the final set of documents. The kitchen was dark, except for a single lamp. Helen was asleep in her bedroom upstairs, deeply, chemically asleep from the triple dose of sedatives Patricia had put in her evening tea. Patricia had developed this skill over the past 18 months, perfectly mimicking her mother's signature. She'd practiced hundreds of times. Now she could replicate it flawlessly, including the slight tremor Helen's hand had developed in recent years, a tremor that was actually caused by the medications Patricia was dosing her with, but which made the forged signatures look even more authentic. These final documents would transfer Helen's remaining investment accounts, approximately $310,000, into a new account in Patricia's name. Once these were filed, Patricia would control everything. Helen would have nothing left except her Social Security check, which Patricia was also in. The process of redirecting. Patricia felt a rush of satisfaction as she completed the last signature. It had taken meticulous planning, careful execution, and months of patient work. But she'd done it. She'd secured her future. She'd taken what she and her twisted logic deserved. After all, she told herself, she was caring for her mother. Didn't that entitle her to compensation? Her mother was going to die eventually anyway. The money would come to Patricia. She was the only child, the sole heir. She was just getting early access, that's all. Patricia had constructed an entire narrative to justify her crimes. Her mother's quality of life wasn't good anyway. Better to be comfortably unaware than anxiously alert. She was actually protecting her mother from stress by handling all the finances. The money would just sit in accounts if Patricia didn't use it better to put it to work now. She'd earned this through 18 months of caregiving. Never mind that the caregiving consisted of systematically drugging and robbing her mother. Every criminal builds a justification. Every thief rewrites history to cast themselves as the victim or the hero. Patricia was no different. But there were moments, brief, uncomfortable moments, when the truth would crack through her delusions. Like now, sitting in the dark kitchen, having just forged her drugged mother's signature on documents that would steal the last of her life savings. For just a moment, Patricia saw herself clearly. A 47-year-old woman who had poisoned her own mother for money, who had chemically imprisoned someone in their own mind, who had betrayed the woman who gave her life, raised her, loved her. The self-awareness was devastating. Patricia's hands started shaking. Her breath came faster. Panic rose in her chest. No, stop. Don't think about it. You're helping her. You're doing what's necessary. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. You've come this far. Finish it. Patricia crushed the guilt ruthlessly. She couldn't afford conscience now. She was committed. There was no going back. She gathered up the documents, placed them in a folder marked Financial Helen Richardson, and filed it in her bedroom office. Tomorrow, she'd mail these to the investment company. Within a week, the transfers would be complete. Within 2 weeks, she'd have full access to the money. And then Patricia would start planning her exit. She couldn't stay in Sacramento. Too many people who knew her mother. She'd move somewhere new, Arizona maybe, or New Mexico. Somewhere warm where she could start over with her mother's money funding a comfortable lifestyle. What about Helen? Patricia tried not to think about that too much. Her mother would. Well, she'd be placed in a facility, a nursing home. Patricia would pay for it with the stolen money, which gave her a perverse sense of moral high ground. See, I'm still taking care of her. That Helen would likely die within months in such a facility, confused, drugged, isolated from everything familiar, didn't factor into Patricia's calculations. Or rather, it did factor in, but as a solution rather than a tragedy. Once her mother was in a facility and Patricia had moved away, there would be no one to question the finances, no one to notice the theft, no one to hold Patricia accountable. It was the perfect crime. Patricia poured herself a glass of wine, expensive Cabernet she'd bought with her mother's stolen money, and toasted her success. To financial freedom, she whispered, echoing the words countless other elder abusers had spoken. To taking care of myself for once. She drank deeply, feeling the warm relaxation of alcohol and accomplishment. She had no idea that in less than 30 minutes, her entire world would collapse. That Jesus Christ himself was about to enter her kitchen and show her truths so devastating they would shatter every delusion she'd constructed. Patricia's phone buzzed. A text from her. Friend Melissa, still on for lunch tomorrow? Patricia replied. Yes, can't wait. Need to get out of the house. Mom duty is exhausting. She sent it with a laughing emoji, maintaining the facade that she was a devoted daughter sacrificing for her mother's care. Melissa responded, You're such a good daughter. Your mom is lucky to have you. Patricia smiled. Yes, people saw her as a good daughter, devoted, self-sacrificing, noble. No one suspected the truth. Another text, this time from her brother Jason, who lived in Florida and rarely visited. How's mom doing? Been thinking about her. Patricia typed quickly. She's declining. Dementia is getting worse, but I'm managing everything. Don't worry, Jason. Do you need any help financially? Taking care of her must be expensive. Patricia almost laughed. I'm okay for now. If it gets too much, I'll let you know. Jason. Thanks for taking care of her, Patty. I should visit soon. No rush. Patricia typed. She gets confused with too many visitors. That was a lie. Jason's visits would be problematic because he might notice Helen's condition, might question the medications, might look at financial records. Better to keep him away, Jason. Okay. Love you, sis. Tell mom I love her. Will do. Patricia lied. She wouldn't tell her mother anything. Helen was too drugged to process it anyway. Patricia set down her phone and finished her wine. She was about to pour a second glass when the temperature in the kitchen suddenly dropped. She looked up at the thermostat. It read 68 degrees, same as always. But her breath was suddenly visible in the air. The temperature had plummeted at least 40 degrees in seconds. "What the hell?" Patricia muttered, standing up and wrapping her arms around herself. And then she felt it. A presence. Something was in the kitchen with her. Every instinct screamed danger. Patricia's heart began racing. Her hands trembled, but not from the cold. She turned slowly, already knowing what she would see, but not wanting to believe it. Standing in the corner of her kitchen, radiating a soft golden light that shouldn't exist, was a figure in white robes. A man, but not just any man. His face held an authority, a weight, a presence that made Patricia's knees weak. His eyes, ancient and ageless, compassionate and terrifying, looked at her with complete knowledge. He knew everything. Every crime, every lie, every secret sin. Patricia knew immediately who he was. There was no doubt, no confusion. "Jesus," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, Patricia," he said, his voice filling the entire kitchen with gentle authority. "I am Jesus Christ. And I've come because your mother has been praying for you every night for 18 months. Even drugged, even confused. Even while you were poisoning her, she was praying for your soul." Patricia's legs gave out. She collapsed into the kitchen chair, trembling violently. "This isn't real," she gasped. "This is a hallucination. I'm having a breakdown." "You've been having a breakdown for 18 months, Jesus said, his voice carrying such weight that Patricia felt it in her chest. "A moral breakdown, a spiritual breakdown. Tonight, I'm showing you reality." He extended his hand toward her. "Come, Patricia. I'm going to show you 3 things. What you've truly done to your mother, what you've truly become, and what awaits you if you don't repent immediately." "I don't want to see," Patricia sobbed. "Please, just leave me alone." "I can't do that," Jesus said gently but firmly. "Because your mother prayed for you, and I always hear the prayers of the suffering." He touched her forehead, and the kitchen disappeared. Patricia found herself transported not physically but spiritually, watching her own actions as if viewing a movie. But this wasn't how she remembered events. This was truth, reality, what had actually happened. Stripped of all her justifications and rationalizations, she saw herself 18 months ago, standing in her mother's bathroom, looking at Helen's medications. She watched her own face and saw something there she'd never admitted: calculation, greed, malice. She saw herself researching drug interactions online, deliberately looking for combinations that would cause confusion and sedation, taking notes, planning. "No," Patricia whispered, "that's not how it happened. I wasn't planning anything. I just watch," Jesus commanded. She saw herself crushing pills, measuring doses, mixing them into coffee, tea, juice. She saw her own satisfied smile when her mother would become drowsy and confused. She saw Helen trying to have a conversation, struggling to form words, frustrated and frightened by her failing mind. And she saw herself, Patricia, feeling pleased by this, actually happy that her mother was becoming incapacitated. "Stop," Patricia begged. "I wasn't happy about it. I hated seeing her decline." "Did you?" Jesus asked quietly. The vision showed Patricia alone in her bedroom, counting stolen money. She was smiling, laughing, even celebrating. It showed Patricia on her phone, shopping online for luxury items with her mother's money. Designer handbags, expensive shoes, jewelry. It showed Patricia lying to her mother's doctor. "Yes, she's been very confused lately. No falls or injuries. Yes, she's eating fine. All lies." Helen had fallen twice, once seriously enough to bruise her hip badly because the drugs made her unsteady. She wasn't eating well because the sedatives suppressed her appetite. But Patricia had hidden these things from the doctor because medical examination might reveal the truth. The vision shifted to show something Patricia had never seen: Helen's internal experience. Patricia saw the world through her mother's drugged eyes. Everything was foggy, dreamlike, terrifying. Helen would try to think, to remember, to understand, but the chemicals in her system made thought impossible. She felt confusion and fear. She knew something was wrong but couldn't figure out what. She felt trapped in her own body, in her own mind, unable to break through the pharmaceutical fog to clarity. It was torture, a unique, insidious torture. And then Patricia heard her mother's thoughts. Why can't I think? What's wrong with me? Is this dementia? Am I losing my mind? God, please help me. Jesus, I'm so afraid. Something is wrong. I don't know what, but something is very wrong. Patricia watched her mother try to write a note one afternoon, a moment of semi-clarity when the drugs had worn off slightly. Helen had managed to scrawl, "Help me. Something wrong. Can't think. Patricia." But before Helen could finish, Patricia had walked in. "What are you doing, Mom?" Patricia had asked, her voice sharp. Helen had looked up, confused, guilty, not sure why she was writing or what she was trying to say. Patricia had taken the note, crumpled it, thrown it away. "You're confused again. Come on, let's get you your medication. More drugs." Burying Helen deeper. Patricia watched this scene and felt sick. She'd known her mother was trying to reach out, had deliberately interrupted, had increased the drugs to prevent future attempts. "I was helping her," Patricia protested weakly. She was anxious. The medication helped her anxiety. "You were imprisoning her," Jesus said. "You were slowly poisoning her mind so you could steal from her without interference. Don't lie to me, Patricia, and don't lie to yourself anymore." The scene shifted. Patricia found herself seeing not just the physical reality, but the spiritual reality behind her actions. She saw herself in the kitchen, preparing her mother's drugged coffee, but now she could see spiritual forces at work. Around her, invisible in normal reality but clear in this vision, were dark, twisted figures. Demonic entities whispering in her ear, "She doesn't need all that money. You deserve it more. You're smarter. You're younger. Take it. It's not wrong, it's practical. She won't remember anyway. Do it. Do it now." Patricia watched herself listen to these voices, agree with them, follow their suggestions. She saw how each small compromise had opened the door wider to darkness. The first time she'd added an extra pill to her mother's medication that had been a doorway. And through that door had come more whispers, more justifications, more evil. Now, 18 months later, Patricia was surrounded by these dark entities. They clung to her like parasites. They celebrated every theft, every lie, every dose of poison she gave her mother. And Patricia, viewing this from outside herself, could see what she'd become. Demonically influenced, if not possessed. Corrupted, twisted. A daughter who had betrayed the woman who gave her life. "No," Patricia sobbed. "I'm not evil. I'm not like that. Look closer," Jesus said. Patricia saw her own soul and it was black. Not metaphorically black, but actually, visibly darkened by sin. Each act of theft, each dose of poison, each lie had added to the darkness until very little light remained. She looked like a monster, and the horrifying truth was, she'd become one. The vision shifted again. Now Patricia saw her mother Helen, in the spiritual realm. Helen sat in her recliner, surrounded by light. Angels stood guard around her. Despite the confusion of her drugged mind, despite the chemical imprisonment of her body, her soul was protected, pure, praying. Patricia heard her mother's prayers. "Jesus, I don't understand what's happening to me. I'm so confused, but I trust you. Please protect me. And Jesus, please save Patricia. She's my daughter. I love her. Whatever is happening, wherever she is spiritually, please reach her. Don't let her be lost. Save her, Lord. Save my baby girl." Every night, even drugged, even suffering, Helen prayed for her abuser. Patricia collapsed in the vision, weeping. "How can she pray for me? How can she forgive me? I've destroyed her." "Because that's what love does," Jesus said softly. "Real love, the kind that comes from me, it forgives. It prays for enemies. It hopes for redemption even when redemption seems impossible." He paused. "Your mother's love is a pale reflection of my love for you, Patricia. Even now, knowing everything you've done, I'm here offering you a chance to repent, to turn back, to be saved. But you must choose."
If this moment is touching your heart, share your story or a prayer request in the comments below. Someone watching may need the encouragement only you can give. Tag a friend who could use this message of hope today.
"I'm going to show you one more thing," Jesus said, his voice heavy with sorrow. Your future if you continue on this path. I don't want to see it, Patricia begged. You must. The vision shifted violently. Patricia found herself standing in a hospital room. An elderly woman lay in a bed, dying. Machines beeped. Tubes ran from her arms. She looked tiny, frail, alone. Patricia looked closer and gasped. It was Helen, but older, more deteriorated, maybe 6 months from now. Helen lay dying in a nursing home. She was alone, confused, frightened, calling out for her daughter. Patricia, where are you? I need you. Please come, please. But Patricia wasn't there. In this future, Patricia had already moved to Arizona with the stolen money. She'd placed her mother in a cheap facility and disappeared. Helen died alone, crying for her daughter, never understanding what had happened to her life, to her money, to her mind. Patricia watched her mother take her last breath, and it broke, something inside her. But the vision wasn't finished. The scene shifted to Patricia, future Patricia living in a luxury condo in Scottsdale. She had spent all the stolen money on a lavish lifestyle. She seemed happy, successful, free. But then the vision zoomed in on her soul. It was completely black. No light remained. Demonic entities swarmed around her constantly, controlling her thoughts, her desires, her actions. Future Patricia was successful but utterly corrupted. She'd stolen from others beyond just her mother. She'd betrayed, manipulated, destroyed. She'd become fully given over to darkness. And then she died. Heart attack at age 62. The vision followed future Patricia's soul after death. She stood before the judgment seat. The book of her life was opened. Every secret sin was revealed. The theft, the poisoning, the abandonment of her dying mother. Patricia Richardson, the voice of God thundered. You drugged your mother to steal from her. You imprisoned her mind. You abandoned her to die alone. You violated the commandment to honor your parents. You valued money over love. You chose darkness over light. Future Patricia tried to defend herself, but I took care of her. I made sure she had a place to live. You poisoned her, God interrupted. You stole from her. You lied to her. You betrayed her. And when she died calling your name, you were spending her money on luxuries. The judgment was absolute. And then Patricia saw where she was going. Hell. Not fire and brimstone from medieval paintings, but something worse. Complete separation from God. An eternity of isolation, regret, and torment. A place where the memory of her crimes would haunt her forever. Where there would be no forgiveness, no relief, no hope. She saw herself there, future self, eternal self, surrounded by the faces of those she'd hurt. Her mother's face, forever calling her name, forever crying for her, forever testifying to Patricia's betrayal. No, Patricia screamed. Please, please, I don't want that. I'll do anything, anything. The vision ended abruptly. Patricia was back in her kitchen, on her knees on the tile floor, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Jesus knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Now you've seen the truth, he said gently. What you've done, what you've become, and where you're going if you don't change immediately. I'm sorry, Patricia gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I didn't want. You just wanted money more than you wanted righteousness, Jesus said, not harshly but truthfully. You valued comfort over integrity. You chose theft over trust. And you drugged your own mother, the woman who gave you life, to facilitate your crimes. He lifted her chin so she had to look into his eyes. Patricia, I didn't come here to condemn you. I came to save you. But salvation requires 3 things: confession, repentance, and restitution. You must confess your sins not just to me, but to your mother, to authorities, to everyone who needs to know. You must genuinely repent, turn completely away from this path, and you must make restitution, give back everything you stole, even if it ruins you financially. I'll do it, Patricia said immediately. Whatever it takes. I'll confess everything. Will you? Jesus asked, his gaze piercing. Because part of you is already calculating, already wondering if you can do partial confession, can admit to some things but not others, can make some restitution but keep some money. I see your heart, Patricia, and right now, it's divided. Patricia felt exposed, because he was right. Even in her horror and shame, Part of her was thinking, maybe I can just stop drugging her. Maybe I can give back some of the money. Maybe I don't have to confess everything. That won't work, Jesus said, reading her thoughts. Partial repentance isn't repentance. Half measures won't save you. You must fully confess, fully repent, fully restore. Nothing less will do. He stood up, helping Patricia to her feet. Tonight, right now, you will do 3 things. First, you will go to your mother's room, wake her gently, and confess everything. You will tell her what you've done, why you did it, and beg her forgiveness. Second, tomorrow morning you will call the police and adult protective services. You will confess to drugging her and stealing from her. You will face criminal prosecution. Third, you will return every penny you stole, even if it means bankruptcy. Patricia trembled. I'll lose everything. You'll lose everything that doesn't matter, Jesus corrected. And you'll gain the only thing that does, your soul. And your mother, whatever time she has left, you'll spend it as a true daughter, not a predator. But I'll go to prison, Patricia whispered, the reality sinking in. Probably, Jesus said. What you did is a serious crime. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, drugging without consent. These carry significant penalties. You may spend years in prison. He placed both hands on her shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. But Patricia, what is a few years in earthly prison compared to eternity in hell? What is temporary punishment compared to permanent damnation? Would you rather serve 5 years and save your soul, or enjoy 5 years of stolen luxury and lose everything that matters forever? Patricia understood. The choice was clear. Terrible, but clear. What about my mother? Patricia asked. Will she be okay after everything I've done to her? Her body has been damaged by the drugs you gave her, Jesus said honestly. Some of that damage may be permanent, but if you stop now, if you confess to her doctors what you've been doing, they can treat her properly. She may recover some clarity. She may have a few good years left. He paused. But more importantly, her soul will have peace. Right now she's confused, frightened, not understanding what's happening to her. If you confess, if you explain, if you ask forgiveness, she'll understand. The fog will make sense, and she'll be able to forgive you. Helen's greatest suffering isn't the drugs, Patricia. It's the not knowing, the confusion, the sense that something is terribly wrong but not understanding what. Give her the gift of truth. She'll hate me, Patricia sobbed. She won't, Jesus said with certainty. She's been praying for you every night. She loves you. She'll be hurt, yes. Devastated, yes. But she'll forgive you. That's who she is. Patricia nodded slowly, wiping her tears. Okay, I'll do it. All of it. Right now. One more thing, Jesus said. After you've confessed, after you've faced consequences, after you've served whatever sentence you receive, I want you to use your story. Tell people what you did. Warn other adult children who are tempted to drug or steal from their parents. Be honest about how easy it is to justify evil, how slowly darkness creeps in. Your testimony can save others from making the same choices. I'll tell everyone, Patricia promised. I don't care about my reputation anymore. If my shame can protect other elderly people, it's worth it. Jesus smiled a smile of such joy and love that it filled Patricia with warmth despite her terror of what was coming. Then you are saved, Patricia Richardson. In this moment, you are redeemed. The road ahead will be hard. You will lose your freedom, your finances, your reputation, but you will gain something infinitely more valuable. You'll gain your mother's forgiveness, your own peace, and eternal salvation. He began to fade, his form becoming translucent light. Wait, Patricia called out. Will I see you again? I am with you always, Jesus said, his voice echoing. In every honest conversation, in every act of restitution, in every moment of courage to face consequences, I am there. Remember this night. Remember that I came for you when you were at your worst, and lived differently because of it. Thank you, Patricia whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. I never give up on anyone, Jesus said. That's what I do. I seek and save the lost. Now go. Your mother is waiting. And Patricia, be gentle when you wake her. She's going to be confused and frightened, but tell her the truth, all of it. She deserves that. And then he was gone. leaving Patricia alone in her kitchen, transformed. Patricia stood in the kitchen for a long moment, gathering her courage. She looked at the clock, 12:47 a.m. Her mother would be deeply asleep from the sedatives Patricia had given her earlier. Patricia walked to the bathroom and found the collection of pills she'd been using: sleeping aids, antihistamines, extra doses of legitimate medications. She gathered them all and threw them in the trash. She wouldn't need them anymore, would never use them again. Then she walked upstairs to her mother's bedroom. Helen's room was dark except for a nightlight. Helen lay in bed, breathing deeply, unnaturally still from the drugs. Patricia sat on the edge of the bed and gently touched her mother's shoulder. Mom, can you wake up? I need to talk to you." Helen stirred slowly, groggily. Her eyes opened but couldn't focus. "Patricia?" Her voice was thick, confused. "What time is it?" "It's late, Mom, but this is important. I need you to wake up as much as you can. I need to tell you something." Patricia helped her mother sit up against the pillows, then turned on the bedside lamp at its lowest setting. Helen blinked in the light, trying to focus on her daughter's face. Even drugged, even confused, she could see that Patricia had been crying. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Patricia's voice broke. "Mom, I've done something terrible, so terrible, and I need to tell you, and I need to ask your forgiveness, even though I don't deserve it." Helen's foggy mind tried to process this. What are you talking about?" Patricia took a deep breath. "Mom, for the past 18 months, I've been drugging you, putting extra medication in your food and drinks, sleeping pills, antihistamines, things that made you confused and tired. That's why you felt so foggy. That's why you couldn't think clearly. It wasn't dementia, Mom. It was me. I was poisoning you." Helen stared at her daughter, struggling to understand. You were making me sick?" "Yes," Patricia sobbed. "And Mom, while you were drugged and confused, I stole from you. I took money from your accounts, $340,000. I forged your signature on documents. I lied to your doctor. I isolated you from your friends. I did all of this so I could steal from you without you being able to stop me." The words hung in the air between them. Helen's drug-fogged mind was trying to process this impossible information. "You took my money." "Yes, all of it. Almost everything you had. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Helen's eyes filled with tears. "But why? Why would you do that to me?" "Because I'm selfish," Patricia said, the truth pouring out of her now. "Because I was broke and I wanted your money. Because I convinced myself I deserved it, that you wouldn't need it, that it wasn't really wrong. I built lies on top of lies until I couldn't see the truth anymore." She grabbed her mother's hands. "But Jesus appeared to me tonight, Mom, right downstairs in the kitchen. He showed me what I've really done to you. He showed me what I've become. And he showed me where I was heading if I didn't stop." Helen's tears were flowing freely now, but her expression wasn't angry. It was devastated, heartbroken. "I prayed for you," she whispered, "every night, even when I couldn't think straight. I prayed Jesus would save you." "I know, Mom," he told me. "Your prayers saved me. They literally saved my soul from hell." Patricia pulled her mother into an embrace, both of them crying. "Mom, I'm going to fix this. Tomorrow I'm calling the police. I'm confessing everything. I'm going to return all the money I stole. I'm going to face criminal charges. I'll probably go to prison. But first, I need to ask you, can you ever forgive me?" Helen pulled back to look at her daughter's face. Even through the drug-induced fog, even through the shock and pain, Helen was still a mother, still capable of the one thing mothers do best. "Oh, Patricia," she whispered. "Of course I forgive you. You're my daughter. I love you. I don't deserve it." Patricia sobbed. "None of us deserve grace," Helen said, echoing words that could have come from Jesus himself. "But thank God, he gives it anyway." They held each other and cried tears of grief for what had been lost, tears of relief that the truth was finally out, tears of gratitude for a God who intervenes in the darkest moments. The next morning, Patricia made her phone calls. First, she called 911. "I need to report a crime," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. I've been drugging my elderly mother and stealing from her for 18 months. I'm confessing voluntarily. My name is Patricia Richardson, and I'm at 4782 Maple Street in Sacramento. There was a brief silence on the line. Then, "Ma'am, officers are on the way. Please stay where you are." "I'm not going anywhere," Patricia said. "I'm ready to face consequences." Next, she called Adult Protective Services. "I need to report elder abuse. I'm the perpetrator. I've been drugging my 79-year-old mother and stealing from her. Her name is Helen Richardson, and she needs immediate medical evaluation to determine the damage I've caused." The APS worker was professional but clearly shaken. "Ma'am, we're sending someone immediately. Is your mother in immediate danger?" "Not anymore," Patricia said. "I'm not giving her any more drugs. But she needs to see a doctor who knows what I've been doing so they can treat her properly." Finally, Patricia called her mother's doctor. "Dr. Martinez, this is Patricia Richardson, Helen Richardson's daughter. I need to tell you something that's going to shock you, but you need to know to treat my mother properly." She explained everything, every drug she'd given, every dosage increase, every unauthorized medication. Dr. Martinez was horrified but grateful for the information. "Miss Richardson, this explains so much about your mother's condition. I'm going to admit her to the hospital immediately for evaluation and detox. What you've done is serious medical abuse, and it may have caused lasting damage. But if we can address it now, there's hope for some recovery. That's all I can ask for," Patricia said. "Thank you for taking care of her." The police arrived within 30 minutes. Patricia had laid out all the evidence, bank statements showing the theft, the drugs she'd been using, forged documents, everything. "Miss Richardson, I'm placing you under arrest for elder abuse, financial exploitation, and administering drugs without consent," the officer said, reading her Miranda rights. "I understand," Patricia said. "I'm not resisting. I'm cooperating fully. I just ask that you make sure my mother gets to the hospital. She needs medical attention because of what I've done to her." They handcuffed her and led her to the police car. Neighbors watched from their windows, shocked to see Patricia being arrested. As Patricia sat in the back of the police car, she felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time in 18 months, she wasn't carrying secrets, wasn't maintaining lies, wasn't pretending. The truth was out. Consequences were coming, but her soul was free. Patricia sat in the county courtroom, wearing an orange jumpsuit, waiting for sentencing. She had pled guilty to all charges: elder abuse, financial exploitation of a dependent adult, administering drugs without authorization, fraud, and forgery. The prosecutor had recommended a sentence of 8 to 12 years in state prison. Her attorney had advised her to fight the charges, to claim she had been suffering from mental illness, to minimize her culpability. Patricia had refused. "I did these things," she told her attorney. "I'm guilty. I'm not going to lie about it." Helen was in the courtroom looking healthier than she had in 18 months. After a week in the hospital detoxing from the drugs Patricia had been giving her, Helen's mental clarity had returned significantly. She still had some memory gaps from the worst of the drugging period, but her cognitive function had improved dramatically. The doctors said there was likely some permanent damage. Her short-term memory would never be quite what it was before. But she was functional, aware, herself again. She'd moved in with friends from church. Patricia had arranged for all the stolen money to be returned, which had required liquidating everything Patricia owned and taking out loans she'd be paying off for years, even from prison. When it came time for victim impact statements, Helen asked to speak. She walked slowly to the microphone, using a cane. She looked at Patricia with tears in her eyes. "Your Honor, my daughter did terrible things to me. She drugged me. She stole from me. She betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. What she did was evil. It was wrong. It deserves punishment." Helen paused, composing herself. "But I also want the court to know that my daughter confessed voluntarily. She could have continued her crimes, could have gotten away with it, but she didn't. Jesus Christ appeared to her and showed her the truth, and she chose to face consequences rather than continue in sin. She's returned every penny. She stole, even though it's bankrupted her. She's cooperated fully with investigators. She's shown genuine remorse, and she's asked my forgiveness, which I've given her. because that's what mothers do. Helen looked directly at Patricia. Patricia, I love you. What you did hurt me terribly, but I forgive you. And I'll be waiting for you when you get out of prison. You'll always be my daughter. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Patricia was given a chance to speak. Your Honor, I have no excuse for what I've done. I drugged my own mother to steal from her. I imprisoned her mind so I could rob her blind. I deserve every day of the sentence you're about to give me. She looked at the judge with tears streaming down her face. But I want to say this. If anyone watching this case thinks they can get away with drugging or stealing from an elderly parent, learn from me. You won't get away with it. Even if human authorities never catch you, God sees everything. Jesus Christ saw what I was doing, and He intervened to save me before I destroyed my soul completely. I'm going to spend my time in prison, using my story to warn others, to help prevent what I did from happening to other families, to show people how easy it is to justify evil and how devastating the consequences are. She turned to her mother. Mom, I love you. I'm so sorry. Thank you for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that forgiveness. The judge sentenced Patricia to 7 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 5 years. As they led her away in handcuffs, Patricia looked back at her mother one last time. Helen was crying but smiling, mouthing the words, I love you. Patricia mouthed back, I love you too. Patricia sat in the prison chapel, leading a Bible study for other inmates. She was 52 years old now, grayer, thinner, bearing the marks of prison life. But her eyes held something they'd never had before. Genuine peace. My name is Patricia, and I'm an elder abuser, she told the group of women gathered around her. I drugged my own mother for 18 months so I could steal $340,000 from her. I'm serving 7 years for what I did. The women listened intently. Many of them had committed similar crimes, theft from family members, drug-related offenses, fraud. I'm telling you my story because I want you to understand something. I didn't start out evil. I started out broke and scared. I made one small compromise, adding an extra sleeping pill to my mom's medication, just once, just to see if it would work. Patricia's voice was steady, honest. But that one compromise opened a door, and through that door came more temptations, more justifications, more evil. Within 6 months, I was systematically poisoning my mother and stealing everything she'd worked her whole life to save. She looked around at the group. Here's what I learned. Sin is incremental. Evil is gradual. You don't wake up one morning and decide to be a monster. You make small choices, one after another, each one slightly worse than the last, until you look in the mirror one day and don't recognize yourself. One woman spoke up, but you stopped. How? Jesus Christ appeared to me, Patricia said simply. I know that sounds crazy. I know some of you don't believe it, but it happened. He showed me what I'd really done, what I'd really become, and where I was heading. And He gave me a choice. Keep going and lose everything that matters, or confess and face consequences but save my soul. So you chose prison over hell, another woman said. Exactly, Patricia confirmed, and it was the right choice. Yes, I'm in prison. Yes, I lost 5 years of my life. Yes, my reputation is destroyed, but I'm free in ways that matter more. My conscience is clear. My relationship with my mother is restored, and my soul is saved. She pulled out a letter, one of dozens she'd received over the years. This is from a woman in Ohio who saw news coverage of my case. She wrote, I was doing the same thing you did, drugging my father to steal from him. I had taken $50,000 over 6 months. But when I saw your story, when I heard you confess, I stopped. I returned the money. I got my father proper medical care. You saved my father's life and my soul. Thank you. Patricia's voice broke with emotion. That's why I tell my story. Because if my shame and my mistakes can prevent even one person from making the same choices, it's worth it. Every day of prison is worth it if it saves someone else. After the Bible study, Patricia returned to her cell and wrote her daily letter to her mother. Helen was 84 now, living in a nice assisted living facility, paid for by her Social Security and the returned money. Her health was decent. Her mind, though never quite as sharp as before Patricia's drugging, was functional. They talked on the phone twice a week. Helen visited once a month when she was feeling strong enough to make the trip. Their relationship had healed, not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. They'd rebuilt trust, slowly, painfully, honestly. In her letter, Patricia wrote, "Dear Mom, I had my parole hearing today. They granted it. I'll be released in 3 weeks. I'm scared, Mom. Scared of being out in the world again. Scared that I'll fall back into old patterns. Scared that people will judge me, which they should. But I'm also grateful. Grateful for the chance to rebuild. Grateful that you're still here. Grateful that Jesus didn't give up on me when I became a monster. When I get out, I'm going to work with Adult Protective Services. They've offered me a job educating people about elder abuse using my story to warn families. It doesn't pay much, but it's meaningful work. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for praying for me even when I was destroying you. Thank you for showing me what grace looks like. I love you, Mom. I'll see you soon. Patricia." Patricia walked out of the prison gates with a small bag containing her possessions. She'd served 5 years and 2 months. Helen was waiting for her, sitting in a car driven by a friend from church. When Patricia saw her mother, she ran to her, and they embraced in the parking lot, both crying. "Welcome home, baby girl," Helen said. "I don't deserve this," Patricia sobbed. "None of us deserve grace," Helen said, words she'd repeated countless times over the past 5 years. "But thank God, he gives it anyway." Patricia started her new job the following week. She spoke at schools, community centers, churches, anywhere people would listen. She told her story without editing, without minimizing, without excuse. "I am a convicted elder abuser," she would begin. "I drugged my mother and stole $340,000 from her. I'm here to tell you how it happened, how I justified it, and how Jesus Christ stopped me before I destroyed us both." Her testimony was powerful because it was honest. She didn't paint herself as a victim. She didn't blame mental illness or stress or anything else. She took full responsibility, and her message resonated. After her presentations, people would approach her in tears. "I was planning to take money from my father's account. Your story stopped me. I've been over-medicating my mother to keep her quiet. I'm going to stop and get her proper care. Thank you for your courage in telling the truth." Helen Richardson passed away peacefully at age 87, with Patricia holding her hand. She died at home, the small condo Patricia had purchased, with the returned money, surrounded by friends from church and her daughter. Her last words to Patricia were, "I'm proud of you. You took the worst thing you ever did and turned it into a testimony. You've saved so many families. Well done, my girl." At Helen's funeral, Patricia gave the eulogy. "My mother was a woman of extraordinary grace and forgiveness," Patricia said, looking out at the packed church. "And I know this because she forgave the unforgivable." She paused, gathering her courage. 8 years ago, I drugged my mother for 18 months and stole over $300,000 from her. I poisoned her mind so I could rob her blind. I am a convicted felon. I served 5 years in prison for what I did." Gasps rippled through the church. Some people hadn't known the full story. "I'm telling you this not to shock you, but because my mother wanted the truth told. She wanted people to know what I did and what she did in response. She forgave me, completely, totally, without holding grudges." Patricia's voice broke. "She prayed for me even while I was drugging her. She visited me in prison every month. She welcomed me home when I was released. She showed me what Jesus' love looks like when it's lived out in human form. Mom, you saved my soul by praying for me. You saved my life by forgiving me. You saved countless other families by letting me tell our story as a warning. Thank you. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to honor your memory." After the funeral, Patricia received a letter. It was from a woman in Texas she'd never met. "Dear Patricia, I watched a video of your testimony online 2 years ago. At that time, I was drugging my elderly mother to steal from her almost exactly what you did. Your story stopped me. I confessed, returned the money, got my mother proper care. She recovered, and we had 2 beautiful years together before she passed away last month. I wanted you to know, your mother's death was not in vain. The suffering you caused her, as terrible as it was, has been redeemed. Because of your honesty about your crimes, my mother got to die knowing she was loved, not drugged and robbed. Thank you. And thank your mother, wherever she is now. Her prayers saved both of us. Patricia read the letter through tears, then looked up at the sky. Did you hear that, Mom? We saved another one. Your prayers are still working. Patricia Richardson, now 57, stood before a congressional committee hearing on elder abuse prevention. In the decades since her arrest, she'd become one of the nation's leading advocates for protecting elderly people from financial and medical abuse. She'd testified in dozens of criminal cases. She'd helped draft legislation strengthening penalties for drugging elderly parents. She'd spoken to thousands of families, warning them about the dangers of medication abuse. Senator, I speak to you today as someone who committed one of the worst forms of elder abuse possible. Patricia addressed the committee. I systematically drugged my mother to facilitate financial theft. I'm a convicted felon who served 5 years in prison. And I'm here to tell you, this crime is happening right now in homes across America. She outlined policy recommendations: mandatory drug testing when elder abuse is suspected, stronger penalties for medication abuse, better training for doctors to recognize signs of overmedication, funding for adult protective services. But she ended with a good personal appeal. I want to speak directly to anyone watching this who is currently drugging a parent or considering it. Patricia said, looking into the camera. You think you're being clever. You think you won't get caught. You think the extra medication isn't really hurting anyone. She paused. But you're wrong. It is hurting them. You're damaging their mind, their body, their dignity. And even if human authorities never discover what you're doing, God sees everything. Jesus Christ saw what I was doing. He appeared to me and showed me truth so devastating that I had no choice but to confess. Don't wait for divine intervention. Stop now. Confess now. Make it right now. Because the person you're drugging is someone's mother, someone's father, someone who loved you, raised you, trusted you. They deserve your honor, not your poison. The testimony went viral. Millions watched it. Patricia received thousands of messages, some hateful, calling her a monster who should still be in prison. But more were grateful. Your story stopped me from making the worst mistake of my life. Because of you, I got my father proper medical care instead of drugging him. Thank you for your courage in telling the truth. That night, on the 10th anniversary of Jesus' appearance, Patricia visited her mother's grave. She brought flowers, Helen's favorite, white roses, and sat on the bench nearby. Hi, Mom, Patricia said softly. 10 years ago tonight, I was in the kitchen preparing to finalize the theft of your life savings. I was drugging you into oblivion. I was the worst daughter imaginable. She smiled through tears. And you were upstairs praying for me, even drugged, even confused, even suffering because of me. You were praying for my soul. Patricia looked up at the sunset. Your prayers saved me, Mom. They literally pulled me out of hell. And then you forgave me when I didn't deserve it. You showed me what grace looks like. She stood and placed the roses on the grave. I've spent the last 10 years trying to honor your memory by warning others, by using my shame to protect other elderly people, by showing people that God's grace extends even to monsters like me. As Patricia walked back to her car, she felt a familiar warmth, a presence she'd learned to recognize over the years. Jesus was there, invisible but real, with her always, as he'd promised. She heard his voice, not audibly, but in her spirit. Well done, good and faithful servant. You took your greatest sin and turned it into your greatest testimony. Continue the work. There are still many who need to hear your story. I will, Patricia whispered. For the rest of my life, I will. And she did. Medical abuse of the elderly is one of the hidden epidemics of our time. It happens when adult children over-medicate parents to keep them quiet and compliant, mix contraindicated drugs to create confusion, withhold needed medications as punishment, use prescription drugs as chemical restraints, drug parents to facilitate financial theft. The victims often can't report the abuse because the drugs make them too confused. Doctors often miss it because they trust family caregivers. And the perpetrators justify it as helping or managing difficult behavior. But it is abuse. It is criminal. It is evil. If you're watching this and you're currently drugging a parent or elderly relative without legitimate medical oversight, stop. Stop right now. Not tomorrow. Not after one more time. Now, get your parent proper medical evaluation. Confess what you've been doing. face consequences. Because Jesus is offering you the same grace he offered Patricia, but that grace requires genuine repentance, not just feeling bad while continuing to sin. And if you suspect someone is being medically abused, speak up. Call Adult Protective Services. Talk to their doctor. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Helen Richardson prayed for her daughter even while being drugged. That prayer saved Patricia's soul, and, through Patricia's testimony, has saved hundreds of other families. Your intervention might do the same. Remember, we take nothing with us when we die except the state of our souls, and drugging a parent for convenience or profit is a sin that cries out to heaven for justice. Choose wisely, choose quickly, because Jesus is watching, and he will intervene either through grace to save you now or through judgment to condemn you later.
Subscribe to Tales of God's Grace for more true miracles and stories of redemption. Your support helps us reach and restore families around the world. Don't forget to tag a friend and share this video, so together we can spread faith, love, and healing where it's needed most.